Hello everyone, welcome back. We are going to be doing a mental health Q&A with the wonderful Mary Burch. So without any further ado, I'm just going to bring Mary straight into the stream. Hi Mary, good afternoon, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Rosie. Nice to be back. I think resolve my technical issues, so here I am on time. Yes, I got into the building this time for sure.
Amazing. So just a little bit about you. So you are based in Scotland, is that right?
I am, yes. I work from Scotland. My work with the industry minds, in normal times, I would go down to London once a fortnight and spend 2, maybe 3 days there working face-to-face with clients. But everything, as you know, in lockdown, we've been using Skype, we've been using FaceTime, whatever suits the clients.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about counselling and about the process of it. There may be people who have been to a counsellor before or have never been but have maybe thought about it. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
There are different modalities for people who have maybe been to counselling before. They've maybe undergone CBT, that cognitive behavioural therapy, which is very popular. If you go to your GP or National Health Service, quite often will send you to a CBT practitioner. But there is lots of modalities out there. I'm a person-centred counsellor, and person-centred, that one of the humanistic approaches, it's non-directive. CBT is, there's a program where you go, what's the issue? Let's work on this. There'll be exercises, there will be homework. Person-centred is, I'm very much that whatever the client brings is where we go. And quite often clients will come in and they go, do you know, I'm here to talk about perhaps a loss. And then they find themselves talking about something else. And often they go, well, I didn't expect that. But very much sessions, they go where they need to go with clients. And that's what person-centred is. I don't drive, the client drives. I do a little bit of navigation at times, but it's putting that, trusting in individuals that whatever's going on with them, they have it within themselves to find the solution. And my role there is just to help them find that solution. It's non-judgmental. People sometimes worry that when they come along as well for counselling, that they go, oh, you know, the counsellor will be shocked by what I have to say, or they'll judge me because I've done such, you know, I feel I've done a bad thing. And absolutely not. If I could reassure people that counselling, regardless of the modality, there's no judgment, there is total acceptance of the individual. There's that empathy, which is crucial to any relationship, where just looking at what's happened to the client from the client's view. I actually had someone the other day, a new client, who said to me, goes, but you just don't understand. You'll not understand me because you've not experienced what I've experienced. And absolutely, you know, we've all experienced different things. We experience things differently. But that doesn't stop me or any counsellor, you know, having the empathy for the individual, being able to step into their shoes for that time being, to see the experience through their eyes. So what I say to anyone who hasn't been to counselling, who's maybe a bit worried about what they can expect, there is that, you know, the trust builds up, there is that acceptance, there is absolutely no judgment, there's no telling you what to do. People do. I mean, people come in and go, well, tell me what I should do, Mary.
Right.
And it might be, you know, in a relationship, and there might be a thought in my head, well, I'll go dump his or her arse, really. But that might be right for me, but not right for that individual. So never give, you know, I would never give advice like that. What counselling will do is help someone to step back and look at it, to consider their options, and find the right thing for them. So again, if you're only thinking about counselling, then it's worth a try. Nothing will change until we do something about our situation.
I think as well, maybe sometimes people feel that there has to be a kind of a momentous happening, like you say, maybe a grief or, the end of a relationship or something specific that would trigger someone then seeking, professional help through counselling. But that's not always the case, is it? Sometimes we just find ourselves in destructive patterns of behaviour or not knowing how to cope with external circumstances that may be ongoing or quite subtle. Is it right to say that, if you just feel that you're not coping in some way or that you want to be able to sit and talk with someone, that also is a very valid reason for going and seeing a counsellor?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we all know, Rosie, don't we, when we're sitting with a problem and we might, sort of ruminate in that, we'll mull it over, and suddenly it gets bigger and bigger. And I would urge anyone who feels stuck, who can't find that solution for themselves, is to go, well, yeah, speak to someone. Some sessions, I have clients who we've had one session.
Right.
They come on with that problem. We've talked it over, and they've seen a new way of dealing with it, or they're able to deal with it, and that's absolutely fine. And they go away. But what would have been the option if they hadn't picked up the phone?
Right.
They may still be sitting 6 months later, and it's bigger and bigger. So nothing is too small. Nothing is too big. If you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I'm feeling distressed, I'm feeling stressed, feeling whatever it is, it's always worth that chat, for sure.
Fantastic.
To do it, yeah.
Great overview of what you do. So obviously we'd love to open this up to, there are people watching now. So if people would like to ask questions, you can ask general questions about perhaps coping in the current situation, feelings of anxiety or feelings of, not quite being in control of the situation. I know that your names pop up if you're subscribed. You have to be subscribed to comment. So if you want to change your name for the purposes of this and ask any questions anonymously, everything is treated obviously in the strictest confidence here. So just make sure that you've changed your name before you post so that we can't see. But feel free to ask Mary any questions at all about any areas that you might be struggling with a little bit at the moment, or topics that you would like us to discuss. But I think because it's topical and because it comes off the back of your webinar the other day, Mary, just talking about, obviously the current climate was completely unprecedented. There was no way of us to prepare ourselves emotionally for I think it goes into two sections for the industry. Probably people who have been on lockdown and hadn't obviously anticipated that happening, maybe have been living not with friends and family, maybe in a kind of slightly isolated, or perhaps with people that they're not close with. And then on the other side of it, and sort of dealing with our kind of restrictions of some of our freedoms, but then on the other side of it we've got the industry which currently is on a hiatus, so there's uncertainty a little bit about financial futures and about being able to come together to work again within an industry that we love. So kind of what advice do you have for people at this time on small ways that we can all apply every day to try and stay a little bit positive and to cope with any feelings of anxiety or stress or kind of depression that people might be struggling with at the moment?
And me that start with saying I never give advice, but there are definitely things that we can do to help ourselves, Rosie, and that's what you're talking about. And right at the start, there was a pattern I could see, that initially the anxiety that was being caused, some of the things you talked about there, the financial, the financial issues, people not earning money in lockdown, losing work. As time moved on through lockdown, the anxiety, we maybe resolved, a lot of people resolved their financial issues, and some didn't. We know that some fell through the cracks, and still that anxiety is there. It then almost changed to something else you said there. It was the connections, where they find themselves. Are they back home with their family, which could create and did, because I know if my children come home, I treat them like children. You know, they're adults, they're grown up. But that would, I can step back from that. But, you know, individuals were going home, they've been independent, they've been living in London, they've been, you know, working in an industry that's hard, and then suddenly they're being told, you know, you should be getting out of your bed now. And even that, and even that part where they're going, so what is it you do all day?
Yes.
I see you having fun in that dance class, you know, but what about work? What are you doing about work? And there was all the anxiety that fed into things like self-worth, creating that self-worth. And the other part of that was the connections, the friends that they had left behind, people of their own age, people in the industry, not having the same connection, being able to go out for a coffee, started to create that anxiety. And now, and the other thing you mentioned there is that's changing again. And it's go, well, what's next? The future. What is there for the industry? What does that mean for me? Will there be work? Will I earn money? And all of that anxiety, for some like financial, you go, anxiety, it's something that happens. That we talked the other day, that you move house, you know, getting married, a change of job creates an anxiety, and then it's over. But the other side of that are the things that, you know, we're plodding along quite nicely, and then something happens that we have no control over. And it takes us back to perhaps something in our past experience, maybe something in our childhood, that suddenly that anxiety is there. And maybe to answer your question that you asked is, what do we do about it? Well, routine. And I say this time after time, establishing a routine is crucial. I had a client this morning who just reaffirmed that, who said, you know, this is a lifesaver for me, having that routine. A simple routine. It doesn't have to be from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. It's just going, you know, you will perhaps do a singing lesson, you'll do a dance class, you'll do a yoga class, you'll have breakfast, you'll cook dinner. Routine, so important. And taking control, the big one, taking control of what you can. But even during lockdown, and we've seen people say, well, I can't control the industry or what's going on, but here are the things I can do. I can, you know, look at my CV. I can look at that and start to pull things together.
Yeah.
I can look at that that script I was working on, you know, 2 years ago, and go, yeah, can I do something with that?
Yeah.
So taking control, routine, taking control very much of the things that you can, and accepting the things that are out with your control.
Right.
And not worrying, because if we can't change them, Rosie, then is there, you know, what do we gain from worrying about things? So almost a part of that is being present as well. Not taking your eye off the ball, because obviously we need to know what's happening, but not spending that energy in anxiety, worrying about something we have no control over.
And I think that is something, isn't it, for people who maybe do struggle with anxiety, is just that lack of control and kind of maybe time now to dwell and think about the things they can't control, as opposed to, you know, times when we're very busy and you get distracted. So I guess, as you say, keeping that routine distracts the mind and focuses on, you know, exactly as you say, on being present and doing something, you know, even as you say, if it's, you know, an hour's dance class, to, you know, the exercise obviously is beneficial, but then also to have focused your mind and body on something else. We've got our first question in. This is from someone who wants to remain anonymous. So, any advice for someone struggling with borderline personality disorder during this time, waiting for dialectical behavioural therapy with my mental health team, but realise this could be a while away? So, just for anyone watching who doesn't understand some of this terminology, Mary, we just talk a little bit about borderline personality disorder.
Borderline and that is one of these disorders that is generally it's diagnosed by the GP, and can take lots of formats. Borderline personality disorder, and I don't know what this client, what this person is experiencing, but with that it's around anxiety. It is around anxiety. It's around all the interactions. Part of it can be our interactions with people, those highs, those lows, and yeah, it can really get in the way of day-to-day living. And how do you deal with that? Well, part of that, I mean, the sort of dialectal behavioural therapy, which is fantastic for not something I do for BPD, but is perhaps then looking at the triggers, so stopping that when the thoughts come in with someone, the behaviours to look out for, those negative behaviours, those negative thoughts as well, is to perhaps stop if you can and recognise what's happening, and crucially accept that that's the thought, that's the behaviour, without worrying about changing things drastically. If that borderline personality behaviour, part of that is pushing people away, is perhaps there's a belief that everyone's going to let me down. Is noticing that, is perhaps noticing that when you start to push people away. I remember actually had a client who struggled with borderline personality disorder, and for her, I mean, it can be varied. Just as anxiety can be varied, and for her, there was that very much pushing people away, believing that no one cared. And that misreading, a friend would perhaps message and say, "Oh, I thought you were going to the theatre tonight. What happened?" A general question that we might respond and go, "Oh, totally forgot," or "Yeah, oh, I'll get there now. I will be there." Someone with personality, borderline personality disorder might go, "Oh, they're attacking me. They don't want to be my friend," and maybe misread a situation because there's a belief. It's whatever the belief is. I hope I'm making sense here. That whatever the belief is around the BPD is recognizing what you're doing. And I love the work that this client did, because she actually tried to push me away. She sent me a long email at one time which said, really around the part, well, no one understands. No one really wants to deal with what I'm dealing with. It's too hard for everyone. Everyone just lets me down. And when I looked at it, and there was initially going, "Oh gosh, this is quite attacking." But when I looked at it, you could see behind it was part of that borderline personality disorder pushing people away. Belief, everyone leaves, everyone lets me down. And that was how I go, here was someone offering empathy, offering time to listen. I go, "Oh, that doesn't actually meet with my beliefs." So they will do their best to push away. And my job there was to help her recognise the behaviour and then find a way to change it if she could. And that's maybe what I would say to the person here, is to notice that, what your behaviour is, what triggers you, and that's enough at the moment, is to start to go, "Oh, this is what I do. Yeah, I recognise that's what I'm doing. And at the moment, that's okay. Yes, because I'm going to do the work later on to change that behaviour. And I don't know if Anonymous, if that answers it. It's almost about accepting where you are at the moment and giving yourself permission to be who you are.
Thank you, Mary. I think you may have already answered part of this, but when I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about being involved in the collective, we talked about perhaps things that are now perhaps this period is a little bit triggering as well for some people with certain who are living day to day with certain conditions or with certain challenges to their mental health. People, for example, who may have struggled with, let's say, eating disorders in the past, or perhaps with an alcohol dependency, who are now either living in an environment where there's no structure to their day and maybe they're by themselves and no one to regulate that. Or, that we've all had said these jokes about, we all baking loads of banana bread and everyone's put on lots of weight since, the beginning of lockdown because we all sat in front of the television. But for some people, this is a real issue that they deal with, trying to stay on top of every single day. And so for people who may find themselves either without a support network around them, or just that this environment and the stresses that associated with it maybe has triggered old patterns of behavior, do you have, is it similar advice for them, or do you have any kind of practical day-to-day advice?
It is, and very much I've found that with clients, be it eating disorders, be that body dysmorphia, OCD, that anxiety, the old, the issues, the experiences from the past that perhaps fed into these eating disorders or whatever, that they've worked towards getting, managing, finding a way through, and then, this lockdown has triggered, has taken them back, but almost these 2 steps back. And what I'm saying to clients is, well, it's okay to know that if your OCD has been triggered and you find yourself, with these the compulsions are increasing, or you find yourself back into those old, sort of the eating disorder, the unhelpful eating. Is this the time? Is to ask yourself, is this the time to deal with that, and not to punish themselves, not to go down that whole spiral of feeling guilt and then feeling bad. So perhaps they go and eat something and they go round and round. They feel bad about that. They go round and round. That it's not the ideal time to change. That might be around alcohol or drugs as well, Rosie, because it's a coping mechanism.
Right.
Part of what they're doing is helping us to cope through these difficult times. And if you take away that coping mechanism, where does it leave you? So, no, it's not ideal. And the people who come, it's not as if, I love my OCD. I love the fact that, I binge eat, because they don't. But it's a similar answer for me is the same as saying, well, look, things are really difficult. Perhaps just accepting where you are at the moment, forgiving yourself, without no guilt, and that when the time is right, because we will come out of this, and when the time is right, then we start to go back. Perhaps even the techniques that individuals have learned over the year will kick in again, and they'll be back to where they were. Or we just go back to the beginning and go, okay, let's start again. And I find I deal with addictions out with of industry minds, and one of the things I will say to a client who comes along, say with alcohol, and we'll look at techniques, we'll look at strategies for for reducing the alcohol, and I will say, even if if there is a little lapse there, that's okay. It's we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We can maybe, and and forgive yourself and just go, okay, that's what's happened. This is what I'm going to do next. And it is part of forgiving yourself and allowing yourself to move on.
I think that's great advice. What are your thoughts? And it's maybe a bit of a maybe a little divisive, but what are your thoughts on social media? Obviously, a lot of us now have more time on our hands. We are constantly, anyway, in real life, normal life, on our phones. In terms of, particularly as we're talking about people that may find this period triggering. A lot of my friends have said, "Oh, I've been very anxious or depressed in the last few days," or I found the news really affecting me in a negative way. And then I'm going on social media and I'm seeing a lot of negativity between people that I like or people that even I don't know. What are your thoughts in terms of social media? Where do you stand on it from a mental health perspective?
There have been studies into this, Rosie, and the studies that the time we spend on social media, the messages we take from social media tend to be negative. That regardless, and that there's a study I mentioned the other day, the Canadian study, that we can go on to you can't help comparing. And I'm going to say something, because the other day when we did the YouTube, we recorded the YouTube,
yes.
And I went on to look look at it afterwards, and there's lots of YouTube videos that your CCI have put out there that I've listened to, and I looked and I go, oh, 89 views. Oh, that's had 1,500 views. And before, yes. And before, and honestly, and I go, oh, what does that say about me? And then I was able to catch myself and go, well, that doesn't say anything about me. That actually says that amazing dancer that you brought on onto YouTube is just, everyone just wants to be a part of that, because that's it. So it doesn't say anything about me. It's just who's interested in mental health, whatever. But that's how easy it is.
Yes.
That to fall into that trap, that comparison, and it's what we do. And that study, the Canadian study I was talking about, was that people who would go on to social media, the comparison of Instagram, and look at, they're slimmer than me, they've been more successful than me, actually feeds an anxiety, creates anxiety. And those who would go onto social media and go, well, I'm just going to look at people who aren't as successful as me, who haven't had as many likes as me, and exactly the same result. Yes, that low mood, that anxiety. So what does that say about social media? It's not healthy. And it's for people out there to, to stop and go, well, what is my experience? How do I feel when I look at social media? And more around the comparison. And I'll bet it's, I would put money on that it's a negative feeling. And I'm going to have to go and check if my 89 views have increased, Rosie, after this. I'm not.
That is true, and there are areas where you just can't always be comparing yourself to somebody else, whether it's on YouTube or on social media. And a lot of what we see on social media isn't real. They've taken 35 photos before the one you see, and then there's filters and Facetune, and it's not, for me, none of it's real. It doesn't stop us getting, as you say, sucked in by it and fascinated by it, all this celebrity and this diet and this and this, but in the back of your mind you have to know that it's not real.
And we know that it's not real, because how many of us go onto social media and go, this is a rotten day I'm having, that we don't. We put the best part of ourselves onto social media, and part of that is it helps us feel good as well. But it's not the whole picture, is it? And I do find it fascinating that we know that we know on Instagram that that person who's there beautifully and sort of manicured and everything, go, yeah, they can have a bad hair day as well.
Yeah.
Indeed, not going to post that on social media.
No, they're not. No.
And what I would say is that when you do look, is rather than the comparison, is you go, well, taking it back on yourself and go, well, actually, I'm good at what I do, right? Valuing yourself, realizing your own self-worth, and how unique you are, how unique we all are, and that's the bit that you would value. That person might have longer legs than you, but do they have the technique that you have? That sounds like comparison, but it's actually going, this is what, these are my skills, these are my abilities, that's what I should be valuing, and not comparing myself to someone else, because I'll not be them. I'm me. Yeah.
And it's embracing those things you can't change about yourself as well, and knowing that they make you unique, and that's what makes you castable. That's what that role is out there for you because of all those things that you think are negatives about yourself make you unique.
So true, Rosie. There's maybe another part to social media as well, at the moment, currently, with BLM, and there's lots of people have been coming on in the last week or so, and that's what we've been talking about, is the impact that it has on them, feelings of guilt, and it's that impact that whatever's happening in the world can have on individuals. Sometimes very good, but sometimes again it's triggering things that are sitting in them, that is worth exploring perhaps with a counsellor. So yeah, social media, it's there for good, but can also create lots of mental health issues, for sure. Indeed. So monitoring, I would say, the advice is, and I know this never goes down well, is 30 minutes a day. Or choosing the right social media. Even think about lockdown, the social media that people, and they were believing so many different things, that choose the things that are true, that are giving the right message, and not a negative message. So just be a bit choosier, perhaps, will help mental health.
Good advice. The person who came back earlier with the borderline personality disorder says, thank you so much. And they've characterized this as, said it's chronic emptiness, dissociation, over-exercise. Any advice for combating emptiness and over-exercise compulsion with the excuse, I need to stay fit as a dancer?
And I suppose if we were talking, I would probably explore, what do you mean by that chronic emptiness? And this is where I have my difficulty. I can put my own interpretation on what do you mean by chronic emptiness, but then it would mean something else for the person who's posted that. Dissociation, and it is that, well, exactly what it's saying. How do you combat that emptiness and over-exercise compulsion? It sounds as if you need some help, that it's not an instant fix. There's a reason for feeling that emptiness. There's a reason for feeling dissociated from people or things or whatever's going on. And there's a reason for that over-exercise. And I see that staying fit as a dancer. And that's what we would need to explore, about what is it, what's behind that? What are the messages to yourself? What's that inner dialogue, that's saying to you, you need to do more and more exercise? Is it the comparison? What's the fear? What is that compulsion to over-exercise? What is the fear? That that you will be less fit, the fear that you won't be ready, once we come out of lockdown? It's a big question. I'm not fudging it. I'm not trying to avoid it at all. But it is a bigger conversation. And what I think is wonderful about this is that recognition that I've said before, that recognition of how they feel, how that person, I'm feeling this chronic emptiness, and that sounds really big. I'm feeling this emptiness. I'm noticing that the compulsion there is to do what they say, over exercise. Again, what do we mean by what is over exercise? And perhaps then to Anonymous is giving yourself credit for recognizing the behaviors and the feelings that are there, and that you're now going to tackle them. And that, how do you combat it? That's the first step. That is actually the first step, is recognizing what is happening to you and accepting what is happening to you. And then when you go in to meet with your counsellor, is starting to explore then those, the ways for you that would be right for you, how to combat them there. Is that okay? Do come back if you want to sort of push me on that one. Yeah.
We've had a question from someone else who is anonymous at this stage. Part one, it's a two-part question. I'm going to study at drama school in London this year. I've always been uncomfortable with physical contact with people I don't know. Lockdown has made this worse, and now I feel anxious going to the shops or being within 2 meters of people. I'm hoping this will fade as lockdown eases, but is there anything I can do to help myself?
And that contact, can you put that back to part one? Yeah. Is that okay? I've always been uncomfortable with physical contact with people I don't know. And again, that's for me as a counsellor, where we go, what's that about? What is that? What do you mean by physical contact? Is that actually just touching people, accidentally? Is it touching a surface that they've touched? And is that with people I don't know? So what's the fear? Again, quite often that anxiety comes down to what's the fear? Because I notice that they say with people I don't know. So I would be exploring, well, what's the difference? What is it okay with people you do know? What is it then that the difference with people you don't know? What's the fear there? Is this the fear of germs, of catching something? And lockdown has made this worse. And again, I'm not quite sure, what the viewer means by that. What makes it worse? Is it because COVID-19 that we can't see it, and again, it's not an instant answer to people, because we would explore, what's behind those words, what are the feelings, what are the emotions, what are the triggers, and then we would start to tackle them. And that is one that, yes, going to go to drama school in London, and there's that anxiety that's going to be triggered, really, that there'll be new people there, people you don't know, and how to manage those triggers. And without knowing more, it's not easy to give a definite answer. It's perhaps even thinking now, between now and then, is asking yourself to go, what is the fear? What is it about people I don't know? What's the fear? And almost drilling down till we get to the roots of whatever is going on, and then we can start to to change, we can start to change. When I say we, I mean the client, because I'm just there guiding a little. Is that okay? Yeah.
I think it's a great answer without sort of any more detail at this stage, but I think possibly this might be an issue for quite a few people as we ease out of this lockdown now back into some kind of normality, is obviously until there's a little bit more clarity potentially on where this disease is or when a vaccine might be available, that people may feel uncomfortable about being in public spaces, for example, or even people who now have been, James and I went into lockdown on our own a little bit earlier than the kind of one that the government announced, because we flew back from New York. We were over there on business and we could see New York shutting down very quickly, and we kind of assumed it would happen here. So we have done an extra week, and I'm already in a place where, as someone who's used to going to the theatre every night, in auditions, in workshops, very sociable, very visible, I'm already in a place where I kind of feel now kind of quite cocooned in my space. And so I start to think, well, actually, I don't know how I feel about now going out and being out every single night, and not necessarily in connection directly with contracting a disease. I think that's a separate thing. But now this idea that we open things back up, and that I suddenly think, oh, actually, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm kind of feeling very, like I said, cocooned, I think is the right word. And the familiarity of my house and it just being me and James and our cats, and not having to create interaction with other people. It's not something that's giving me enormous anxiety, but I can imagine for some people that will now be a change of adapting again. And that might create some anxiety. So do you have any advice for people on how to cope with kind of going back to being out and being social, having been so cut off from physical contact with so many people for 3 months really now?
Yes. And it is, and just when you say that, I've actually quite enjoyed the sort of the lockdown, the isolation. I've enjoyed that. And one of the things is that you don't have just people knocking on the door. And yesterday, I was actually working, and suddenly someone knocked on my door, and I go, oh my goodness, do you know what's this? And there was only that little fear as well, and how to deal with it. And it was a window cleaner who was back at work, which was good to see. You know that that. Well, what I'll say is, 3 months in, Rosie, and how you've adapted to that. If we take you, that you've adapted to that. You've found a way through it. You've found your little cocoon. You're safe in there. And if someone had said to you before lockdown, go to your home and stay there for 3 months, I thought, oh, you couldn't possibly do that.
No.
But we find the resilience in ourselves to adapt and to adjust. And that resilience is what will take us forward after this. Well, I'll not sort of jump when someone knocks on my door. And I kind of get that. I hate going to the supermarket. Whereas I would go to the supermarket 4 or 5 times a week before lockdown. Yeah. And now I'm saving a lot of money. But now I absolutely hate it. I dread it.
Yes.
I have to wait till the freezer's empty. But we've adjusted to this, and we will adjust. It's trusting in ourselves, because as human beings, and it perhaps goes back to when I spoke about counselling and person-centred counselling, is that within all of us is that trust from the counsellor that within all of us we have the ability to grow and to find the right path for ourselves. It's in every one of us. Sometimes we need a little help to get there, but it is trusting that there's a window cleaner back to doing his job, smiling, whistling, making the dog bark, and absolutely fine. And we will. It's possibly some things will be different, but some things will still be the same. But we will, our past experiences, all the things we've learned throughout life all come together. It's part of that resilience, and we will find a way forward. And anyone who gets stuck, because sometimes there might be that you go, no, suddenly that fear, my fear of going to the supermarket, you know, if I got stuck on that and go, I really can't do it, is perhaps then starting to explore anything that keeps you stuck. Explore that with a counsellor to help you to make that move forward. But I think trusting in ourselves that, yeah, we did this, we managed lockdown, we will find our way back from this.
Interesting, very interesting. There are obviously lots of creatives and performers at the moment who may have gone from being in very creative, artistic roles, whether that's actors, choreographers, dancers, etc., who are now working perhaps jobs that are not a passion for them. You know, survival is that, we've used the word survival. I mean, we've always talked about survival jobs, and perhaps that term's been more relevant now than ever. You know, there are people who literally were on the West End stage one day, or on a tour, or on a ship, you know, traveling the world, who then now are finding themselves, you know, working in jobs that don't give them any kind of fulfillment creatively or emotionally, and there's no kind of visible end to it right now. Obviously, the television and film community is starting to get things back up and running, and theatre will follow. It will come back. But for people who perhaps are feeling very negative about having to go in, you know, every day to do a job that really they might hate, what do you have any words of kind of advice for them on with coping with that?
I suppose it's maybe looking behind that as well. Creatives, part of what I've noticed is that creatives, when they're not working, you know, clients who have been in West End jobs, they've been working, and their identity is caught up with that work. And if you say to yourself, you know, go sort of, well, if you introduce yourself, I wonder how you introduce yourself to someone. Do you know, do you go, I'm so and I'm an actor, you know, I'm Rosie Pearson, I'm a casting director. And you can see that our identity gets so caught up in the job that we do. And I can maybe identify a little with that, Rosie, because before I was a counsellor, I worked with the civil service. I was a career civil servant. So I was a senior officer with customs, and then something happened. Yeah, I was bullied. I can say that I was bullied. Created a depression, for sure. It was a terrible situation, but my decision then was to just to leave that behind, and walk away. And part of that, me feeling depressed, was, wow, if I'm not a senior officer with customs and excise, who am I?
Right.
Yeah. So that identity, and it's taking that step back and going, oh, wait a minute, I'm more than, you know, more than just my job. And, you know, I am a mother, I'm a volunteer, I do all these other things, I have all these other skills and these abilities. For people who are finding themselves not working, is to perhaps, if they can, is to step back and go, well, I'm maybe not an actor, you know, I'm not a performer at the moment, I'm not producing, you know, I'm not directing at the moment, but that's not all, that's not the whole of me. And it's building your connections, will help with that. Building your leisure time, building the fun into your life as well, exploring all the other things that you were always too busy to do. Yes, and you know, I didn't have time to read that book. No, I didn't have time to watch that TV program.
Yeah.
It's that realization that you're not just your job. You are so much more than your job. And I find for some clients, this has been for them. It's been an opportunity to step back and say, do I actually want to continue with what I was doing? Do I want to live in London? Do I want to, sort of work in that coffee shop just to pay the rent?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, for them, they're going, I've always wanted to teach math. I always wanted to do this. And there's been a wonderful opportunity for people to look at their identity, at their skills and go, this is what I want to like. I want what they refer to actually as a normal life. Quite often, that normal life, that 9 to 5, find the partner, find the house, the car.
Stability.
The stability, indeed. And that's right for them. It is absolutely right for them. For others, is that, working in, I think Scarlett from Industry Minds is working in one of the supermarkets, I can't remember which one, Sainsbury's. She's working in Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's not forever, and that it's hard, but it's part of that resilience as well, isn't it? And you go, this is what's needed in this moment to get me through this stage. It's not forever. There was something else about that I was going to say, but it's also that it's something they've done before, which is actually quite a wonderful thing. Actors who are not working at the time will find that other job, don't they? To pay the rent, to keep them going, ready for that next audition. It's that adaptability as well, that they can do it. They can do it because there's an end goal. They can see something at the end of it. This is why I'm doing it, because it will create those opportunities to go to the audition, to have the money for classes, or whatever. Don't know if that really answers your question.
No, it does. And I think, we've all had jobs at some point which we haven't been our passion, and they've been to pay the rent, or as you say, to allow other opportunities. When we were building Pearson Casting, James was teaching a lot when we weren't busy at the beginning, and I worked as a hospitality manager in a big football club, and it wasn't something that I was particularly passionate about doing. I was lucky to have, a decently paid job, but actually, and it was for an extended period of time, kind of coming in and out of building a business and starting creatives. But now it's given me that moment of saying, well, actually, now I really appreciate that I don't have to do that anymore. And actually having those periods of doing things that we don't really want to do makes us appreciate even more when things come back. We have jobs that we love to do in an industry that we love. So I think sometimes it is useful, although it's hard to see at the time, but to have that perspective to look back and say, okay, well, I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. to do a 14-hour day, on a match day, serving people sausages today, because I get to do the thing I'm passionate about. But, that's just part of, I think, the creative industry. I think what is hard at the moment is just kind of not knowing where the end of that is going to be for some people. And also, I think potentially for some people, it's kind of not quite living up to their expenses, but perhaps, the jobs that they've had before, if through hospitality, for example, which has very much been on hold, that it's that financial concern. So I think, I think it's a challenging time for a lot of people.
And part of you saying that, be it that job in Sainsbury's or whatever, for me, that's maybe noticing as well that you're taking control of the situation.
Right.
That, this is something that is within your control, and able to and help you make that decision, going forward as well, what's right for you. That I always admire creatives, absolutely, especially when, creatives who feel they've got to justify the work to family. Very much that, McDonald's are hiring. You know, yeah, that or at the moment where they're perhaps at home with family, family who are working from home and working from home, and then that almost, well, so what are you doing? You know, is reading scripts, you know, is watching something, is watching live theatre, is that working? And so difficult. But I always admire creatives who can put themselves into that position, you know, week after week, day after day, where they put themselves into an audition that, you know, where there can be that rejection. And the resilience that's there, and it's perhaps drawing on that resilience as well, and noticing that how many of us could do that. I couldn't do it, Rosie. Do you know? I can't remember the last time I had an interview. Do you know? So, who would? And sometimes, not that I ask clients to cause a fuss in the house or whatever, but to notice in themselves and go, well, do you know? Could that friend, that parent, whatever, who's, you know, going, oh, do you know, how easy is your job? And go, oh no, you know, could the person saying, yeah, McDonald's is hiring, do what creatives do, you know, week after week? And there is such huge resilience in creatives, and it's pulling on that, taking control of what you can will help move forward and find that road after lockdown, for sure.
Thank you. Someone has said, very concerning that theatre may not return for the next year or so. Any advice on what to do in the meantime? Should actors and creatives be looking at alternate career paths? Mary, what are your thoughts? And then I'll pick up as well.
Yeah, and it's maybe a bit of what we've been talking about, that this is a time where people stop and reflect, and they go, well, what do I want? Do you know, can I continue with this job in Sainsbury's? Because my passion is the theatre, and that, I can jump over these hurdles because I know things will change at some point. And it may not, it's about resilience, it's about patience, and it's about what you want, what you need in your life. For some, that's the go, yeah, I can do this, you know, I can do that secondary job, or I can start to take even more control. Can I find other opportunities that are linked to the industry? If I'm perhaps not going to be standing on a stage in the next year, what else do I have artistically that I can do? So I mean, I'm finding producers who are writing at the moment, and you'll know more about this than me, Rosie, that people are really being so creative about themselves, about digging deep for those skills, etc., and doing something, knowing that, yeah, it might be a year or more, but this is their passion, that's where they want to go. And it's that personal choice. For others, I have noticed that they're saying, do you know, this isn't, you know, for me, this is hard. This is actually creating anxiety, and perhaps it's time to look for something different. And I maybe go back to my own experience where I could have gone back to civil service. It was almost maybe the easy option as such, that guaranteed, instead of, well, you know, other skills, other qualities that I have here, experience, and I went away and trained to be a counsellor. So everyone's different, Rosie. I think that's it.
No, I definitely agree. And I think it is a time that when everyone's kind of stepped back and said, oh, you know, what else do, you know, what else is available out there for me? But I think as well to look at it in the longer term, of anything that you learn, anything that you can develop and grow now is only going to help you in the longer term. So there are lots of opportunities within the industry. Let's say if you're an actor, there are lots of other ways, as you say, whether it's writing, whether it's teaching, whether it's starting your own online workshops, whatever it is, that you can then be taking on with you. This is going to all come back. Yeah. It may come back in a different form. It may take some time to come back. There may be different people still in the industry. Obviously there's a element of kind of there will be a change over this time. There just will. But that's not necessarily a negative thing. That's not necessarily going to be a bad thing. There will be new opportunities that didn't exist before. So the more you can, more strings you have to your bow, the more you can take with you into the future as another income source or another creative outlet, however you want to look at it. I don't think it'd be very dangerous to say, and things aren't coming back for a year, go and do something else, unless you want to do something else, exactly as Mary said, unless you're kind of taking this time and saying to yourself, well, actually, I've always thought about, I don't know, joining the police force, becoming a counsellor, working in marketing. They're all things that are teaching, whatever it is. If they're things that have always been in your mind and you now think, well, this is a time to explore those things, then great. But I think we're going to need the arts more than ever. And look how much everyone's been turning to theatre streaming and online content and Netflix and all these places and YouTube for entertainment and for content, because we all rely on these amazing media every day. So we're going to need people to hang on in there and come back at the end of this and create new work and be part of that process. So I think I would be very careful saying everyone should be looking at alternative paths. I think the focus should be on how we get through this period, looking after ourselves physically, looking after ourselves emotionally, financially, making sure that we're all going to be okay for as long as it takes for things to come back, but not to give up on being a creative if that's your passion. That's how I see it anyway. But perhaps the day-to-day realities of maybe having a family or rents or mortgages to pay are obviously a big factor for people. So but we need creative people and actors at the end of this. We need people to come together and create art and make art. So any way that you can hang on and create other revenue streams. I think this is really what it's about, probably, is what is going to be the bread and butter. What is the financial revenue stream that's going to see you through? So it's finding something a bit like the day job when you are an actor that you don't hate, that perhaps gives you flexibility to still be creative at the end of the day, if that's possible, that when you do have downtime, that's something you can be using productively to do whatever it is, whether it's to paint or to illustrate books or to write or to workshop new work via Zoom, however that is. But not to give up on this industry, because there are a lot of people fighting very, very hard to bring it back, because thousands and thousands of people rely on it and need it. So that's my response.
And I think that's such a wonderful positive response, Rosie. And I have, and in fact, I think I was invited to a workshop, which was the bottom half of that question. We should all be looking for alternative career paths, because the theatre industry isn't going to exist. And I couldn't be part of that, because it felt very negative.
Yeah.
It was almost saying, and who knows what the theatre industry will look like. And it's taking those positives, that all of those positives you've just said, and go, okay, what works for me? What can I take? What can I do to keep myself going at the moment? Because my passion is the theatre.
Right.
And work towards that. Develop new skills. Yeah. Look at the skills that you have, and and increase them. And find something. Yeah, I like what you said there. Is find something, some work that's going to give you. You're going to feel good about.
Yeah.
Indeed. To take you through, because that's a big part of anxiety, I find, as well, with creatives. are those in between jobs where, you know, it really just feeds anxiety, feeds depression. And one of the things we work through is go, okay, are there alternatives?
Right.
You know, if serving coffee in that coffee shop is just making you brain dead and dreading going out, what else can you do? Are there other opportunities? Take the control and see and find a way to get through this.
Just very quickly while we're on that, because I know there are some creatives watching, but obviously part of the purpose of creating this platform was to offer free development support, connectivity for people in the industry, but also to provide a little bit of income and the opportunity to grow business for the practitioners involved. So if anyone's watching and teaches or feels that they have something to offer and would like to get involved in CCI, get in touch with us. All the contact details are on the website, collectivecreativeinitiative.co.uk, and we really are keen from hearing from people within the entire industry. If you feel that you have something, maybe it's a particular area of theatre practitioner, you're a practitioner in that area that you really want to share, or you teach a dance class or vocals or whatever it is you want to do, get involved. Obviously it's not going to provide necessarily your income solely for the next few months, but the idea is that everybody then is working a little bit holistically in terms of creating content that people can engage with, but also giving yourself, I feel that I have a purpose in doing this every day for 26 weeks. It's not what I trained to do in the industry, but it's kept me connected with the industry. It's it's something that feels positive, it feels like it's beneficial. So if people out there are watching and they are interested in getting involved, then please send us an email with examples of any of your work. We really love to hear from people, and it may be that you can do one session every 2 weeks around your other job, but at least you are still involved in connecting with people and earning against a little bit of money through your craft. So that's just from us there. Yes, Mary.
I'm just going to add to that as well, because there's something very important in that, Rosie. People coming together and sharing what they can. And again, studies have said there's that feel-good factor of you contributing, and look at the number of people that you help, that helps them to get through. That you do a dance class, that dancer who takes part in the class, it's that the tentacles from that just spread out so wide, and really important, I think, to go, what can I do to help others within this industry? And that's not putting pressure on people going, you need to be doing.
No.
It's either your thing or it's not your thing, but if you can, and I think a producer client I had, who is creating an online platform for actors, for writers, I go, the people that she is reaching with that, making such a difference. And I thought, if people do come, the Collective Creative Initiative is such a wonderful platform for people to come and go, this is what I can do. And the difference that it will make to others in the industry is amazing. I'm sure. Sorry.
Thank you, Mary. No, good. The person who was asking about alternative career paths was just saying thank you so much for the answers. So we had another question. During lockdown, I've had a lot more negative dips than normal and felt more emotional than usual. Do you have any methods for recognizing, reversing negative dips before they affect productivity? I guess that might be hard to answer without knowing a bit more detail, but
it is, because it comes back to that. What are those negative dips? And also recognizing that the stress we're all under. That I saw that dip with creatives. 6 weeks into lockdown, we were kind of okay, and then after 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, there was such a huge dip. Yes, in the stress, in the anxiety levels, and part of that is that we can deal with stress for a short time, that it's okay for stress for a short time. When it becomes prolonged, then it starts to affect us even more. That maybe that negative dip. So recognizing almost that it's normal, that it's the way it is, that we can deal with so much, and then something else happens, and we're down there. But recognizing it, again, I seem to say, go back to that, you're noticing it, you're noticing that dip. And maybe the question to ask yourself is to go, well, what is it? What is that dip about? Is it perhaps the financial? To do, is it, that the money's perhaps, you go, when do we end all this furloughing? Is it October? And go, the what ifs. Is that what's the dip? Is it the lack of connection with people? Perhaps exploring that dip, and those emotions, noticing those emotions. What is that emotion? Is it sadness? Is it fear? I've been saying to people recently as well, we've been talking about journaling, and journaling is so powerful. And maybe to the person here is to go, maybe journaling, if you don't already do it, is worth a try, where you're putting those thoughts, that dip, those emotions, where you're putting them, you're on paper. So this is a method for recognizing and reversing, is putting them on paper, because we think the emotional part of our brain, that be it that fear, that hurt, that that sadness, that confusion. If you write it down and go, what am I actually feeling here? Then the logical side of your brain gets to have a look at it. So you're dealing now with the two sides of your brain, and sometimes you go, oh my goodness, is that it? No, I'm not dismissing this or minimizing it. Go, but wow, I see the solution to that. Or that's not as bad as the emotional side of my brain made it feel. But it helps you to actually look at your options. So journaling, very, very powerful. Doesn't need to be, war and peace. It's just, what are you feeling? What are those emotions? And then you start to explore and perhaps find a way of dealing with that within yourself.
Great, thank you, Mary. And then who, I think it's the person who was writing in about the BPD, just says, lovely and helpful to have had the chance to reach out. So thank you today. Unless there are any more questions, Mary, I'd love you just to talk a little bit more about the service that you offer. If anyone feels following this, or just generally they want to reach out to you for some private sessions, what's the process? I know it's through Industry Minds, but you talk people through the length of sessions you offer and how that works.
Well, generally, yes, you can get in touch with Industry Minds. Anyone within the industry, be that writer, staging, whatever. If they're within the industry, they can just email Industry Minds. Am I going to remember this? industryminds.co.uk, at industryminds.co.uk.
Yes.
Or they can, if it's for counselling, then they can email me directly, which is mary@industryminds.co.uk. Sessions during this time, if people are struggling with finances, sessions are offered free. We also have another couple of counsellors on board who will take on a few clients as well. But the sessions are free. Anyone who can afford to pay, that would be amazing, because it then allows us to provide even more counselling for people who are struggling. Sessions can be offered by telephone, by Skype, by WhatsApp, FaceTime, or Zoom. Yeah, the new Zoom. And sessions last 50 minutes. I don't know what else to say. Generally, if we were in normal times, if we were doing counselling in London, sessions cost £25. We've reduced that during lockdown for sort of existing clients who can afford it. We've reduced that to £15. But if you cannot afford, even a donation of £5 or whatever, you will never be turned away. And we will certainly be delighted to engage with you, because it's important that people deal with their mental health. If there's something struggling, it saddens me at times when clients come and they'll go, for the last 6 months, for the last year, this is how I felt, and I'm odd, and really now I just can't deal with it anymore. And that's sad. I don't know what keeps people away from reaching out to a counsellor, but as Rosie said right at the start, it doesn't matter. You're in your mind, you might go, but this is such a simple thing, and people are saying that just now. I get messages, Rosie, where they're going, oh, I know you're probably busy, Mary, and there are people who need the service so much more than me. Well, no, if there's an issue, whatever it is, whatever size you think it is, then this service is for you. And it's that whole comparison again, isn't it?
Yeah.
I lost my handbag. I think last time I was in London, I lost my handbag. I did leave it on a bench somewhere, but that was huge for me. Some people would go, Mary, and they would laugh. But for me, that was such a big thing. I was so distressed. I felt the loss. I was in tears. And it's like that, where that's big for me, and someone else go, it's replaceable. You'll get everything back, Mary. It's absolutely fine. Because that's what I'm saying. We all experience things differently. So don't judge. Don't be that person who goes, but mine is nothing. It's no big deal. There's people worse off than me. Please do reach out. Yes, if you can pick up the phone or send that email, please do. It makes a difference.
That's absolutely extraordinary that you're offering support for people who can't afford it at this time. Obviously, as Mary says, if you can afford to pay, then obviously that allows them to support more people. If people, what are the hours that people can access you guys? Are you kind of 10 to 6 sort of thing?
No, absolutely. Virtually 24 hours. I'm not going to be counselling at 2 a.m. in the morning, but I do find, and again, particularly with creatives, do you keep late hours? Is that what it is, Rosie?
Yeah, later than we should sometimes, yeah.
But quite often, I do get that message coming in to 1 a.m., 2 a.m. from creatives, and I do my best, to respond. And even if it's just I don't have my diary, I'll send you a full answer tomorrow. But 24 because if someone is in crisis, absolutely, we'll respond straight away. But yeah, 24/7. I'll work some weekends as well. I will offer sessions on a Tuesday evening and a Thursday evening for people who can't manage during the day, and weekends up until 1 o'clock, not the whole day. And I think, was it James that said the other day, we all need a day off.
Right.
I build in. I think my Saturday afternoon, I don't work every weekend, but my Saturday afternoon, my Sunday afternoon are definitely my own. We do need that time off. But any time, we always, with creatives, with my own clients, we'll go, okay, I do a Monday evening with some clients, and I know who I've got at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, or whatever. But with creatives, just very adaptable, because creatives, even in lockdown, have their classes. Students are, maybe still attending class as well. And and adaptable to work through different times each week, different days each week, whichever suits the client.
That's brilliant. So all the details of contacting you will be underneath this YouTube link when it goes up. Also, just for people to know, Mary is back again with us on the 24th. She will be doing another Q&A. So if you have more questions and have watched this time and just wanted to see how it works, but have things that you want to talk about here, then feel free. We'll be talking perhaps a little bit more topically about, you know, what might be happening at that time, but open again to questions, and very happy to have you come on anonymously. For anyone who is kind of struggling a little bit with financial advice, we do have Natalie and Alex from Theatre Counts joining us on Thursday morning, this Thursday, June 11th at 10 a.m. They are going to be talking specifically around what financial support is available for you if you're self-employed, the furloughing scheme, the SACE, and anyone on 0 hours, and then a little bit of advice for people who maybe have fallen through the cracks, like Mary mentioned earlier on. So they'll be talking generally and open to questions like we have here. You can also email them in advance if you've got kind of 3-part questions or something more complex. All the details of how to contact them are on the session on our timetable, which is collectivecreativeinitiative.co.uk. Have a little look on the timetable, Thursday morning, 10 o'clock, and that's another 90-minute session. So lots of time to really get into the detail, and they will be back every fortnight through the 6 months. So as the situation changes, as more schemes become available or work opens up, they'll be here to answer advice, VAT forms, and self-employment tax return, that dreaded thing that comes around for us seems like every few months. So any questions you have on the financial side of it, they are here to answer all those questions. Mary, thank you so much. I know that there are lots of people who maybe haven't asked questions, but who will have just found it very helpful to hear you talk and to know that they're not alone, and you know that you'll be back, and also this, you are offering a one-to-one service.
Please do get in touch if you feel the need. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And we are still growing and developing things with CCIs. You know, we launched this very quickly, but we are building a page at the moment with useful industry links on there, and all the details of how to get in touch with Industry Minds and with Mary will all be on there as well. But just bear with us. It was, you know, one day at a time for us at the moment, getting everything up and running. But Mary, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to take you out of the stream, but stay in the studio. I just want to say goodbye afterwards. So from everyone watching, thank you so much, Mary. And it's been a brilliant afternoon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this session with Mary. I know we had some comments and questions and lots of people saying thank you. So thank you from us for getting involved. You know, these sessions are for you. They are here. You can reach out anonymously if you have things you want to talk about here, or you can contact Mary privately through Industry Minds, as we said, for one-to-ones. Just coming up for this afternoon, we have, I closed the tab. Here it is. Beginner's Music Theory with Katie Richardson. If you have been working in the industry or just graduated and you really have always wanted to know more about how to approach reading sheet music, you get given scores in the rehearsal room and they kind of don't make any sense to you yet, she is going to start a course of explaining and exploring how we get to grips with music theory. Trust me, that's going to be super interesting and just really helpful. And then creating a voiceover reel with Judith McSpadden. That's at 4:45, so make sure you're coming back and getting involved in that as well. Lots of really useful tips about content to put in your voiceover reel, and also creating that home studio, which I think we're all battling with at the moment, is working all of our technology from home. So hopefully she'll have some great tips. Kimberly says, thank you so much for being here. I'll just pop this on the screen so Mary can see it. Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly. And Freddie's Corner says, thank you so much for this Q&A. Just wanted Mary to see those because she's in the studio. Guys, thank you so much again for getting involved. Mary will be back on the 24th of, what month are we in? June. So we'll see her back then. We'll see you for the rest of the sessions this afternoon. Take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.